Alex Hansery here, November 16th in the year 2016. Continuing on with our post-election selection podcast covering subject by subject, I want to talk about the whole-scale demonization of today's protest. I've already raised the question, is it even worth it to protest anymore? But there's a difference between going out in the streets and protesting and involving yourself in chaotic situations and being a lone voice of dissent. Independent thinkers that are not on board the Trump deception or the Trump presidency, for those that are offended by such terminology, they are considered almost subhuman at this point. Anyone that dissents against the Trump is considered to be a radical leftist or someone paid and co-opted by George Soros himself. And even if he is, and others are involved to a degree in the social engineering, in the media manipulation, to say that they deserve the credit for protests to take away from the entire history of Portland. For example, let's just focus on Portland, Oregon for just a minute, because this is where most of the protests take place. And for those of you that are not new viewers, you've already heard my commentary on Portland and how certain places during certain times you see more unrest, and it's not all politically sourced. It may be the reason why people are protesting, but when we have more solar flares, when we're in the solar maximum period, and if you haven't seen my presentation already at the Free Your Mind conference, just go ahead and find it on my channel regarding solar flares, sunspots, and the changes that it brings to humanity. And I have noticed, and I'm one of the few in the entire alternative media that has noticed the trends between solar maximum, massive civil unrest, staged events, false flags, and then we look at what's happening in our world today of manufactured events and rigged elections and co-opted protests and revolutions. It's all right there on the timeline. So what I'm saying to you is there's going to be an organic resistance to authority, to control. This is normal, and it's actually a part of American history. And what's happening now is we can see how the involvement of people like Soros and Clinton, how they can easily discredit any genuine protest by pledging their support, for example, to the Democratic Party and saying that they are, involved in this and involved in that. And so, again, it is they are there to discredit genuine protests and activists. Now, having lived in Portland and seen some of the protests, some of you aren't familiar with the term splinter group, but there really is, and I disagree with it completely. That's why I moved away from Portland. But you should know, you should be aware of, that there is a way of thinking within our society that is organic. It may be Marxist-based. It may be something that you and I both disagree with, but there's a difference between disagreeing with someone's tactics and then calling them someone who's being paid a weekly or daily check. Now, you can cite examples, you can cite Craigslist ads, but to say that everyone received a check is schizophrenic. People in Portland protest every time a major Republican is supposedly elected in office. For those of you that are Portlanders, even if you disagree with the tactics, you're at least aware of what I'm talking about. You're aware of the historical references. You're aware of the 2003 March 19th protest when Bush attacked Iraq, when we first invaded Iraq, and then it was after that that Portland and other major cities went on the map big time. Fox News talked about when protesters burned the flag in the year 2003. None of this is new, ladies and gentlemen. None of this is new. And in certain parts of the planet, liberal doesn't really describe it very well, but abstract would be better. Free thinking, not necessarily. Portlanders have their own form of groupthink and hive mind consciousness. I want to move on to the next subject. So they co-opted aspects of the left and the social justice warriors. So when we really are dealing with racism, no one's going to listen because of all the cry wolf behavior that's been taking place for years. As someone half Middle Eastern, and the other genetic line is of a Germanic bloodline, I know what discrimination is really like when you're a mixed bloodline. I mean, for those of you that are seething with hatred towards those that have a diversity of genetics, you know what I'm talking about because you hold that judgment in your heart. And for some reason, even though you hold that judgment in your heart, what is it about you that continues to listen to this YouTube channel? And I'm not talking to all of you, but you know as well as I do, you are not the only listener in the classroom. There are other forces, if you will, listening to this podcast. Just take a look at all the thumb down comments on anything dealing with anything regarding spirituality, going beyond the illusions of separation, or highlighting the racism that does exist in this country. Just take a look at those that listen to this channel but don't want to hear about other things going on that obviously they feel don't affect them. Maybe because they're not a part of the group or class or genetic line being targeted or being bombed back to the Stone Age. It's more than likely what it is, a lack of empathy, a sense of apathy towards the things that really matter. And so I exist, I am alive, to help people see beyond the illusions of separation. Whether they choose to listen or not, that's beyond me. It's not in my interest to get people to believe everything that I'm saying, but to play my role and put out those breadcrumbs of truth here and there to help people see beyond this insanity. It is insane to say that one man, and this really serves the establishment, the George Soros conspiracy theory serves the establishment because they have scapegoated one man who literally, like Clinton, provides cover for all the other criminals in either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party by using front men and women and providing false narratives. The establishment hates Trump. The establishment loves Clinton. The establishment's going to rig the election in the favor of Hillary Clinton. What did I say during this whole time? This is reverse psychology. If anything, they're going to rig it in the favor of Donald Trump. So here's what they've got going on. They are beating up on these individuals, showing their mugshots. Look at these, scum of the earth, like they're terrorists. People are literally talking about the people in the mugshots like they're terrorists. And not everybody at the protest was involved in property destruction, and I am adamantly against that. But do I see that on par with terrorism? Like some sort of proposal from the Republican after 9/11 that we should call protest terrorists in a subsection of the Patriot Act? That's fucked up. Now, again, there's going to be certain areas where every 10 years or so during solar maximum 11 to 12 to 13, you see major protests in Portland, Oregon, and other places because it's a sign of the times. Not only the staged elections, the staged events, manufactured civil unrest, but the way that people are biologically vibing to the increased energy from the sun. We are in that season now, and we're actually coming out of the solar maximum period. Again, if you haven't seen my 1-hour presentation on this, it will help you understand what it is that I'm talking about. Or hit pause right now. Hit pause right now on this YouTube video and type in solar flares and cycles of war, Alexander Chavinsky, Russia, 1918, and look at some of the earliest studies that were done on the cycles of war and peace and their relation to the solar cycle. And that will help you understand the period that we are in. And I have been suggesting to you for many, many years that there's an aspect of the elite, be it human or not human, that understands how most human beings unconsciously respond to the solar cycles. Thus, they can be controlled if they are put into environments to where they are thrown off balance, to where their left and right brain are off balance. Their masculine and feminine selves are off balance. Bombard them with fear, bombard them with things that will fuck with their stress hormone response and literally will flood their system with the stress hormones. Add in some fear of terrorists, fear of the radical left, even fear of Donald Trump. Add in more of that fear like a toxic cocktail, and then the people, most of them, that are being hit with this mind control, unless they know how to ground, unless they know how to protect their own consciousness, most of them will fall under the spell. And as we can see that there is a mainstream spell for the right, and there's a mainstream spell for the left. And for any of us that is actually a genuine independent thinker, we will be called a radical leftist by the right when they are in power. And when the left are in power, and we're speaking our mind and we're speaking our truth, they call us the racist right wing. Maybe it is something about my genetic diversity that enables me to see beyond the illusions of separation, but I am noticing this pattern. I am noticing that I am one of the few in the alternative media that is not compromising, that talks about the victims of war, that generally in my heart, I would sacrifice myself if I can stop the genocide in Afghanistan. I would jump into a machine and I would sacrifice myself. I would jump into a volcano. That's how much I care about what's going on. And the very fact that I see people compromise their morals and integrity and vote for people that aren't actually even pretending to be interested in curtailing the victims of war, the death toll. All they do is talk about U.S. soldiers and death. U.S. soldiers, U.S. this, U.S. that, Western this, white man that, white man this, white man that. Meanwhile, the Afghanis and Iraqis continue to die by the millions. You tell me what is the reincarnation of the Third Reich, and that this is not the Fourth Reich. It seems to me that Donald Trump is going to embark in a particular direction. It's going to be popular at first with his supporters, but it's going to end up destroying this nation's currency, this nation's economy, the safety of the white men and women, as well as other minorities that live within this country. Donald Trump himself may not be racist, but he is obviously possessed with power. He's been positioned to be where he is now. And for the first time in many decades, he is playing a role to bring out the worst of our society, the real white supremacists that have been remaining silent for some time. Trump has given them the notion that it's okay to come out of the closet. And then, of course, we see Alex Jones, we see others, and to literally make an excuse for this, they are alleging that the radical left is false flagging the race attacks. And while some of that may be going on a level, I would say that it's very possible that intelligence agencies are very involved in this. We know about the FBI's involvement in the KKK. We know about the FBI's involvement in other things going on in the United States. And I've also stated my opinion that the Oregon standoff was a government operation to see what type of radical extremists, as they see them, what type of radical extremists they can bait up to the mountain, if you will, or Burns, Oregon. And now that the Bundy brothers have been found not guilty in Oregon, oh, they're on their way back to Nevada, this is setting the stage for more events like that. So the government, in my opinion, has a lot of experience provocateuring. And going back to Portland, Oregon, there was a fair amount of property damage, but it was only done by a handful of people. And even though this seems like a conspiracy, having lived in Portland, and you should hear this from an ex-Portland activist, there are a lot of people that have screamed at me in the streets for not thinking like them. Not government agents, but genuine young people that believe that force, that believe that violence, that believe that property destruction is the way in this violent society, that you get attention, that you get the media's attention, that you show them that you're serious, that you show them that you're upset. And while I'm not apologizing for these tactics, many people, many young people believe that these are the only tactics left because they are not listening to the American people. I agree with them. They are not listening to the people of the world. That doesn't make their tactics a mindful way to respond to the fact that they're not listening. It makes them predictable. It makes the actions predictable. It makes it by design. They're not aware that their actions are by design, that they want them to respond in an angry way and, you know, to think that it's normal to go out and smash windows at a car lot because you're angry at Donald Trump. All this is building. All this is building. And so is the fear and the demonization of the radical left. Now, where is this going to go? Where is the demonization of the woman that wears the hijab going to go? How much longer before we hear reports about violent gang rapes on college universities or in the streets of America today? Because we know what's been going on to the Afghan women and the Iraqi women at the hands of U.S. forces for many, many years. It's only a matter of time before certain people take things into their own hands and say, you know what, we really got to frighten these people from these other countries, even if they were born here. We need to take their daughters. We got to hurt them, cut them up, rape them. And then people are saying, wait a minute. No. The radical left's going to do this. Excuse me? So people on their own are gonna grab some baseball bats, grab a truck, act like some good old boys, you know, run 4 deep, 5 deep, 6 deep, maybe bring some knives, bring some chains, Just start driving up the streets of America looking for a girl with a hijab. Or maybe, her and her husband walking home from the movies. Maybe it's time to act like it's the 50s or 60s. Nigga, you don't belong in this neighborhood. And to the blacks and Latinos, you see, you're dealing with in many cases. And even James David Manning, he'll talk about the Latinos, he'll talk about the blacks. They're silent about the Middle Easterns because they've all been demonized as rapist Muslims. What about those that aren't even Muslim? What about those that are Middle Eastern that haven't even come from some of those countries? I mean, this is really, really fucked up. You're listening to a half Middle Eastern person that people will straight up call subhuman when they comment on this channel. Do you realize that? Because for years, some people in my own audience have been in denial about the hatred that is boiling beyond the pot. And I have continued moving forward. I have not succumbed to fear. And I've adapted this philosophy. If I die, I die. If I'm murdered, I'm murdered. But I'll tell you what, it feels like a lot of pressure when you know you're the only human of Afghan descent in the United States speaking this truth via the English language. Someone who, in fact, is not from Afghanistan in this life, but is from the United States, is from the state of Oregon that's now been overrun by domestic migration from California and New York. Now I live off the grid in time for this Trump presidency. And I think this was meant to be. I knew this stuff was coming, more hatred. And I was praying, I don't want to be living in my RV without a home and family during these turbulent times, looking like an Arab or a Persian in today's society, which I do. If I do not shave daily, and if I do not have a monthly haircut, the curls will show, and the curls and the hair weave, the way the hair grows, which has always been subject of public ridicule, the way my hair looks. And I don't know that people actually realized how racist that was when they were attacking my physical appearance for years and years and years, going, what is that dead animal on your head, Alex? And it's like my response is, those are the genetics that you obviously have an aversion to, because I can't change the natural flow of my hair. I can't change, and I shouldn't even be in a state of mind to where I think I should change it. I have no control, and nor should I think that I should have some control over who had sex with my mother in 1978, 1979. I'm alive. I was born in 1980, and I have gone on since 2004 to speak about so many important issues affecting the country that I was born in, and discussing these plans for World War III and how it's all staged. Whatever's coming out of China, out of Russia, is staged at the highest levels of our own government, because our own government has been propping up over the years the governments of Russia and China. We could see a historical pattern of this. This is not disputed. U.S. and Western nations helped craft China and Russia into the sculpture, the form that it sits today. From the Bolshevik Revolution to the OSS funding both Mao Zedong and Chiang Kai-shek, U.S. involvement behind the scenes in those countries has been going on a very, very long time. And in your white-dominated alternative media, why is it that I'm one of the few that's seen beyond the illusions? That's telling you, no. Putin's not a good guy. Putin's not your daddy. They are preparing for a new world order. And you have very few people warning you about global government now in the year 2016. If anything, you have people that used to warn you about global government. And now they're telling you World War III has been averted. And now they're telling you the decline of the Western Empire is going to bring the world peace. I don't have any problem with the decline of an empire. I don't want to see people starving in the streets during an economic collapse and selling their sister, selling their mother, selling their daughter to some sex fiend so they themselves can eat. Humans, the masses of humans throughout time, have shown themselves to be so animalistic that they will sell themselves. They will sell their own morals and integrity and don the police state uniform or join the armed forces. They will sell their pussy for sex, for money. sell their body for sex, and some men will rape with their penises if they are put in a situation to where they're allowed to hurt other women and get back at them for years and years of negativity that's been boiling within them. And instead of saying years of trauma, as I have in the past, it's years of negativity, because you can heal from trauma. You can heal from PTSD. You can heal from certain things. But if you're not interested in healing, if you're only interested in just hurting people and causing pain and destruction, well, like a lot of people on this planet today, they're alive, they morph into monsters. And so we literally have people that have sold their soul, that are trapped here on earth, as far as I'm concerned, on this soul prison planet. They are stuck in this soul prison as I conclude here now. All this is being set up to encourage humans to hurt other humans, domestically and in terms of our foreign policy. And it's all being designed by something at some time to bring America to its knees. And when that happens, and for what reason, use your imagination, because that is a whole other arena of conversation, which we will come back to. But what you're seeing right now with the whole-scale demonization of blacks, Jews, the radical left, anyone that doesn't agree with Trump is considered an enemy of the state. They might as well be called a terrorist. And this is something that has me very unnerved. I'm Alex Ansary, signing off for November 15th. 4:21 in the morning, 2016.